What's up? What's up? What's up? We are live with the Whole Damn Enchilada Wrestling Podcast Edition. First time back, and for that, we have our first ever wrestling interview guest. We have the one, the only, Gregory Iron. How are you doing tonight, brother?
I'm okay. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Right on, man. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today. I don't know. It says we're live, but when I checked my phone to see if we were, let's see, I don't see us live.
What the hell?
Modern technology. So we're live on my horror page at least. So maybe I don't know. Maybe people will come in. Maybe people will talk to us. We'll see. But nevertheless, I'm here to talk to you. So that's all that matters, man. So how did you, let's see. I got a whole list of questions. Where do we start? You are a pro wrestler who also suffers from cerebral palsy. Is that right? Cerebral palsy, CP. That's what that is, right? What
yes.
Is, let's talk about that briefly, so maybe my listeners will understand what that is.
So basically, cerebral palsy is a neurological disability that can happen either before or sometime after you're born, within like the next like 2 or 3 months, something in that range, where it usually stems from a variety of things. I think in my case, it was a lack of oxygen to the brain before I was born. And basically, the left side of my brain doesn't work properly because of this, which affects the right side of my body. So it's most notably in my right hand, fingers, arm, and but it's technically the whole right side of my body. So sometimes I drag my right foot and stuff. But for the most part, everybody's different with CP. And mine is very mild, all things considered. Like a lot of people that I know have had a variety of surgeries, or they're wheelchair bound. Sometimes the CP can affect you on both sides. Sometimes it can affect your speech. Like, I guess, the best example of someone with a mildly, a partial speech impairment would be the kid from Breaking Bad, Walt Jr.
Okay.
So it's like, so you could have all different forms of CP, but mine is, I'm pretty lucky with mine because, all things considered, I can still do a lot of stuff. It's just when it comes down to little stuff that I forget about because the CP is so mild. So it's like if I'm struggling to open a bag of something, or, lifting weights can be frustrating for me sometimes, but I'm very fortunate because not everybody in my condition can even open a bag or lift weights. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, you've definitely been able to overcome quite a bit with that, training to be a professional wrestler and succeeding in the world of professional wrestling, as well as all the other stuff you've been able to do in your life. And just even, like you said, lifting weights, I can imagine, not for nothing, man, you got a pretty good body, man, to be able to lift weights with the one arm. I mean, I don't know how you managed to even do that, but you're like an inspiration to people to like get up and do something because you don't let anything hold you back. And that's pretty awesome. So,
I appreciate that.
Well, what got you into wrestling in the beginning? Do you remember your first memory in wrestling?
Yeah. So my first memory of watching wrestling was WrestleMania 6, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, The Ultimate Challenge. And then it just kind of grew from there. Like, I vividly remember because Hulk Hogan quickly became my guy. So him getting his ribs crushed on the Brother Love show, and the sadness behind that, and I'm a big fan of wrestling video packages and everything, and I think that's one of those early, really incredible, tear jerking, heartstring pulling videos where they do the instrumental version of Real American, and all the slow motion clips of like Hogan getting crushed, and like that iconic shot of them showing Hulk Hogan's shirt and bandana in the locker with the cross, and then the locker closes shut like as if Hulk Hogan's never going to come back again. And like, I think my real in-depth fondest memories of wrestling are like the year of 1991. Like, I remember watching specifically every pay-per-view live with my grandma and grandpop at their house, and just 91, there was ups and downs like any year of wrestling, but there's a lot of sentimental value with those shows, like the 91 Rumble, WrestleMania 7, I think, is kind of underrated,
Absolutely.
despite the fact that they stacked 15 matches or whatever on that show. You know, SummerSlam 91 is classic. Tuesday in Texas is probably the shittiest pay-per-view out of all of them. I like it, but that was just an
It's still so
experiment, you
fun,
know?
you know, to move everything along, you know, with the whole Flair and Undertaker and all that going on. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and they didn't even advertise it. They just dropped that in the blue. Like, here's a Tuesday pay-per-view. It was the craziest thing.
Yeah, well, that was the only one in '91 that I didn't get to watch because like my grandparents had no problem buying the pay-per-views, but they did it on Wednesday and then they expect you 6 days later to buy another show. And I mean, I'm sure you could look it up, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine they tried to skimp on the price at all. I'm sure it was still $30, you know, like which 1991 $30.
I don't remember. I think it might have been $5 cheaper, but if anything, that was it. You know, like $5 or $10 cheaper. So it was, if the one was 40, this was 30, but it might have even been the same price. I don't remember, but yeah, that was crazy. We weren't the first pay-per-view we ever got was the WrestleMania 6 as well. It's the first one I got to watch where I didn't have to just listen to the static on the pay-per-view channel because I was sick with it, dude. I did that. I did that. I had a crazy video store I used to go to where they would have like everything from the territories and stuff. So I just went all the way back. So I was like 6 in WrestleMania 6. How old was I? I was born in 79. Was I about 11 years old then, right? Because wasn't that 90? Yeah. So yeah, but I always like even watch like a lot of the old stuff, like you know, stuff from Texas or World Class, and I just anything I can get my hands on. I wasn't a Hogan fan though. I always liked the bad guys, even as a kid. So for that one, I think I was probably pulling for the Warrior. I became a Hogan fan when he turned heel.
I think a lot of people did, and now like I don't know. I think it takes a. We're not going to make it political, but geez, I feel like
he's a real life heel now.
He's a real life bad guy. It's like I feel embarrassing to support him, and like you know I often joke about how like I have all this Hulk Hogan memorabilia, and then one of my friends from high school, Sarah, that I went to prom with, she stopped by to see me while I'm injured a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to her about this very subject, and she was like, well, you know, you separate the art from the artist. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't know, if I went over someone's house right now and they had like a whole wall dedicated to P. Diddy, I would kind of look at him and go, have you been watching the news right now? You know what I mean? Like not to say that Hulk Hogan is like did anything like crazy like that, but it's just like he's not a good person. And it's coming out more and more.
And every day it's more and more. So yeah, it definitely sucks.
Yeah.
Oh man. So let's see. So when did you what made you want to start training to be a wrestler? And I mean, just as kids, I think we all wanted to be wrestlers, but you actually went out there and did it. So like, what got you into that? And
yeah, I never thought that I could actually be a wrestler. So even though I loved it a lot, I never really thought like, hey, this is something I could do. So, but I was so passionate about it. I remember thinking, well, since I can't possibly be a wrestler, I started figuring out other things about the business. Like, well, there's wrestling magazines. I like to write. Maybe I could be a writer for a wrestling magazine. And then as I start getting smarter to wrestling, I'm like, oh, someone's creating these storylines and things like that. And then when I'm thinking like, well, I can't be physical like a wrestler. Maybe I could be a manager, not understanding like, you know, there's still a lot of physicality and psychology you need to know as a manager, but I'm a kid. I don't know any better. Right. And so I'm just trying to think of any way to get my foot in the door so I can, you know, quench this appetite that I have to be a part of wrestling. And quench this appetite, that doesn't make any sense. Quench this thirst, that makes more sense. So, you know, eventually I see Zach Gallen on WWE. And so obviously he wrestled with one leg, right? And to see him do the things that he was doing with one leg, it was the first time that I really saw, I guess, representation for someone like me, like someone with a disability, where it was like, hey, wow, like this guy has a physical disability and he's overcoming this and he's living his dream. So maybe I can do that with mine. And, you know, I begged my dad for a weight bench and he made fun of me and thought it was stupid. And eventually he caved in, got me a bench, and I started with like 5 pounds on each side of the bar, and wasn't even an Olympic bar. It was one of those cheap ass Kmart.
Yeah, the little ones.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I just kind of built up from there, and I started doing my research. I was like a big Pro Wrestling Illustrated guy, and so I started figuring out, there's these schools that you can sign up for, and then through reading stuff and kind of making sense of everything, you want to find a school that isn't just going to steal your money. So I'm
Right.
trying to find
It
someone
happens
that's
a lot.
reputable. It
It
does. It
happened to
does.
the Undertaker. I mean, it
It
happens to
did.
everybody.
It did. And he was someone that, where did he go to? Buzz Sawyer, like who was on
Let's
TV,
swear,
like he was. And so like, you would think like, well, this should be a good bet, but it didn't pan out. So it's like, you still have to be cautious no matter what. But what I looked for in a wrestling school was like, being close to home, because I still didn't have a reliable car when I was like 17 or 18. And then B, and I think probably more important is like, has this school churned out any talent? Like, are there guys that are actually doing stuff based on
right.
the school that they went to? And so, as luck would have it, I'm watching a DVD, a bonus DVD that came with the Backyard Wrestling DVD for video game for the Xbox, and M Dog Matt Cross is on there, and he's talking about, they're like interviewing him. It's like behind the
Hey,
scenes
Greg,
stuff.
are you using a microphone right now?
No, I'm just using my headset.
Oh, because it's like cutting out.
Oh, maybe it's my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi sucks here.
Yeah,
Hold on.
it's all good. Oh, now you're all frozen. We will try to get Greg back in just a second when he figures out what's going on here.
Hold on.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now a little bit better, but I can see you now because you were frozen a second ago. So, but go ahead. So like M Dog, and you might want to just like take the headphones off and just use your phone mic, and like that usually works better for people. And just like turn off the headphones and just use the sound from your phone. If you can do that, if that's not too much trouble.
Not at all.
Yeah, you sound better.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you much better.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
So
M Dog and the Backyard Wrestling DVD, and go ahead.
Yes. So I see him doing this interview, and they're just asking him how he's enjoying doing this wrestling in California, because that's where they were filming all the stuff for the game, or it was like some release party or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, it's not a lot warmer here in California than my hometown of Cleveland. And I remember being like, wait, what? There's a wrestler from Cleveland, Ohio? So then, I find out him and Josh Prohibition are both from Cleveland, and then I figure out where they got trained, and turns out they trained with this JT Lightning guy. And I heard some things about Cleveland All Pro Wrestling. I had a buddy in my high school that were going to these local shows. And so it took me a while to get the courage, but I ended up getting a flyer, and I called the Cleveland All Pro Wrestling hotline that was on the flyer, which was just a 216 Cleveland area code number. Yeah. And a woman answered the phone, and I go, hi, is this the Cleveland All Pro Wrestling hotline? And she is like annoyed, and she goes, yeah, hold on. And then hands the phone over to who?
JT's phone. It's like his girl's phone. Like here.
Yeah. And it's JT Lightning. It was probably like a shared, house phone or whatever. And, I'm telling him, like, I wanted to ask about being a wrestler, but then I kind of lost the courage, and I told him my situation, and I was like, hey, I'm 5'4" and I weigh this much, and I know that's not impressive, and I have this disability, and I don't think I could be a wrestler, but like, do you train people to be managers? And then JT, who was notoriously never really a nice guy to me, at least, in this one moment of sincerity, he says to me, let me ask you something. Is pro wrestling in your heart? And I remember when he said that to me, I got a little choked up, and I took the time and I thought about it, and I said, yeah, it's in my heart. And he said, well, here's where I'm located. Come on down sometime. And eventually, I came down. They weren't training that day. So then I got scared, and then I didn't go back for a while. And then I started to go to the shows in the summer of 2005. started actually communicating with JT in person. Got my foot in the door by selling tickets for him. I discovered AIW, who had just started running at the time in Cleveland, and I started selling tickets for them and doing security guarding, which not very intimidating for a guy who's 5'4" with cerebral palsy, but again, it was a foot in the door. And in April of 2006, the Tuesday after WrestleMania 22, I made sure to purposely make that my first day of training, so I would always remember that it was after WrestleMania. That's when I started training. I paid $50 for a tryout, and I was scared that JT would be there because he was always very mean and intimidating. He wasn't, thank God. I did my tryout with two guys by the name of Canadian Bad Boy and KC Blood.
Yeah.
And, I tried to hit the ropes and turnbuckles and learned how to take bumps a little bit. And I guess I did good enough for them to tell me to come back again on that Thursday. And I just kept coming back and kept paying. And in retrospect, I kind of got off easy with the way, at least the fee that I paid. I think that I paid per month to train to wrestle like $100. It might have been less than that actually. And then soon after that, JT ended up getting television, so he upped the fee. So if I was paying like $100, he started charging kids like 150 or something like that a month. So to me, I'd always heard like you got to pay like thousands of dollars up front. And so I just thought to myself, like, geez, I got it good. And I was so scared of JT. I made sure I had my $100 every month without fail. And I think, I don't know how much he wanted us to pay in full. I don't remember, but I know after like 7 or 8 months, because Johnny Gargano was helping with training and we were becoming friends and his stepdad was kind of a part of it, they just told me to stop paying. So I might have only paid like $700 or $800 to be a wrestler. So that kind of worked out financially, but I lost a lot of money long-term too before I started making it. So
did you meet Johnny through that process or before then?
So I met Johnny briefly at AIW when I was doing security guarding, but it was like a shake his hand, hi, good to see you. Like I was just some security guard kid.
Oh, okay.
But
I was under the impression that you guys were friends like as kids. I don't know.
No. So it's
kids. I mean, obviously you're still kids at that point. But.
Yeah. Well, it's weird that we never ended up meeting up because there was a period of time where we always grew up in the same neighborhood, but there was a period of time probably in 97, I want to say, where I lived right around the corner from him, probably like 10 houses down, and we didn't know each other, So like it's strange that we never crossed paths, especially because my house was so close to his. There were 2 alleys, an alley behind my house, and then if you cross the street, the alley went down and around behind his house, and I would always ride my bike down that alley. So the fact that we never, when you're a kid, if you see other kids,
right,
like you just kind of interact, and it
right,
never happened. So it's weird that we didn't meet until I started training really, and that's when we grew close because oftentimes JT would even come to training and he would just put Johnny in charge, who was an 18-year-old kid. And then there were guys that sort of cycled in and out of training. But for the most part, on most days, the only people that were at training regularly were me, Gargano, and Matthew Justice. And then like sometimes Ben Boone would be there. Sometimes Hobo Joe would be there. Zoe Sky, who at the time, I just knew her as Nikki. She would come in and out of there. And I mean, that was there again, there was like some kids that sort of rotated in and out that never really did anything, but like those were the kind of constants at the school. But there were many nights where it would just be me and Johnny, or me, Johnny, and Matt just sitting in the mat, trying stuff and hanging out. And like no one bothered to show up to training because no one else really wanted it.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have come through Cleveland, especially through AIW. Yeah, I started going to like I've been to like going to like local shows for like ever. I probably your first shows I seen you at, You know, because I seen you once wrestle behind this bar on 65th. You know that spot, right? Is it 65th or 73rd? By Denison, that bar. You know that bar. There's a picture. A friend of mine's actually refereeing a Johnny Gargano match. It might have been against you.
Are you sure it was on 65th?
65th or 73rd, one or the other. I can't remember.
Because the only bar that I remember
like
wrestling
down a hill, and you're kind of behind there by Denison. It's irrelevant. It's a shithole.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. That whole neighborhood is.
Wrestle Gargano's behind. You know, but he had a show back there, and then of course, like just what Turner's Hall. Turner's Hall was a big spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the name of that bar? I can't remember, but there's a picture. Like a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, was a referee. I got a picture of when Gargano finally made it to WWE, and I came across the pictures. I think he might have posted it, and I was like, "No shit, that's my friend Sarah." So I screenshotted the picture and sent it to her. It's like, "Hey, you're refereeing a match with a guy that's in the WWE. How cool is that?"
That's so funny.
It might have been against you, the match. Actually, I kind of think it was. But nevertheless, yeah, her name was Sarah, and she was kind of a taller chick, and yeah, but it was at this bar that I want to say it's definitely 73rd. It's on 73rd.
Okay.
And Brinsmaid, I believe, is the street. 73rd and Brinsmaid. And it's behind the bar. Yeah, I don't think there was a fee to get in. I think you just walked in.
Okay, that sounds about right.
But yeah, it was good stuff, man, for sure. So what let's see. What is a match that you are most proud of?
Oh boy, I feel like I have a lot of different matches at different times in my life that I'm proud of for various reasons.
It's like your kids, it's hard to pick one, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like if I had to narrow it down to one, it would probably be me versus Zach Gowen. The first time we did that, which was Pro Wrestling Ohio Resolution 5 outside at the Jacobs Pavilion in front of like 1,000 people. And, I never thought I'd be a wrestler. I only became a wrestler because of Gowen. Mm-hmm. When I first met Gowen, he was kind of an asshole. And then over time,
tag team partners with him.
Yeah. Well, so he little did I know he had a drug problem. So then he ended up going to rehab. And when he got out of rehab, he was a different guy. And as he was sort of on his way down, coming out of rehab, I was on my way up, and I had just done the thing with Punk, and I was doing more interviews and stuff. And so he must have heard in one of the interviews that, he was a jerk to me, and he got my number from somebody and reached out, and he apologized and borderline like crying, he told me he cried like not realizing like how much of an impact he had on so many kids around that time he was on television, including me. And he said, if we could ever do something together, I'd love to. And that's when we started teaming. And then Joe Dombrowski at PWO had this idea to have us against each other, have Zach turn on me, and we do a match. And initially we didn't want to do it because of our own insecurities, because it was a matter of like, we immediately went to like the South Park scenario and like people looking at it like it was a cripple fight. Right. And so we just thought it would be awkward and weird. And I remember even in the weeks leading up to the show, I was training very hard to look good for the match, but I wasn't confident in how the match would turn out. And again, I think it went back to insecurities. But then, like the night before, I don't know why it took me so long, but like all of a sudden I made sense of how the match was going to work. And when I saw Zach the next day, I think the light bulb clicked for him too. And we were on the same page. And like, what makes my story, my situation as a wrestler work is, even though I'm disabled, and that's a big part of who I am, that's what draws you into what the character is. Mm-hmm. When I'm wrestling, I need to make you forget, at least for a moment, that I'm a disabled wrestler. I need to make you believe that I can kick this guy's ass, big or small, indifferent, whatever. And so all of a sudden it just hit me that the story of the match between me and Zach isn't a guy with one leg and a guy with one hand wrestling each other. The story is two pro wrestlers wrestling each other, making everybody forget that we're two disabled pro wrestlers, to where afterwards they're like, holy shit, that was a great match. And once that resonated with me and it resonated with Zach, it was easy. And I look back at that match, and even for the time, like, it's hard to explain, but like, as a wrestler, as an artist, you know, I'm a big critic of my own stuff. And I think like when you're decent at what you do, you're always going to be criticizing yourself and you want to be better. But when I go back and watch that match, I feel like I moved better than I was moving at that time. Like I moved differently. I moved more confidently. And I think we told a great story. And, you know, for 20 minutes, we had, you know, a crowd of people forgetting that we were disabled, and we were doing shit that no people in our conditions should be able to do. And I don't know, to be a kid that just grew up watching Zach, and then I got to not only team with him but wrestle him and have a this awesome match. I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of as a performer.
Nice, nice. Is there a moment that in your career where you finally realized that this was all real and that you're actually like doing the wrestling thing? Like you're not just, like just selling tickets to be part of it. You're actually here's a story. Maybe you remember, maybe you don't. But a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, not even a friend, some guy, just random guy, I might have been wearing one of your shirts or something, and he started talking to me online about it, and he found out I was from Cleveland. He goes, "Do you know Gregory Iron?" I go, "Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I see him at shows." And he was like, "Well, I don't know if he's from the UK or Australia, one or the other, far as hell." And he was like, "I would love to have an autograph from him." I was like, "Oh, dude, I got you the next show." And I met you, and I got I got an autograph from you, and I told you the story who it was for. I was like, "Yeah, this guy wants this. I don't know. I'm gonna send it to him." But like just hearing stories like that, like what is there something like that maybe that where you just felt like kind of like you made it, like all your hard work finally paid off?
Well, so I think, so to kind of backtrack,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I became a wrestler because I wanted to prove the doubters in my life wrong. And I feel like everybody becomes a wrestler in some way because they feel like they're missing something or they lack something, and you're trying to sort of fill that empty space, right? And so when I became a wrestler, like, I wanted to be able to look back at people that bullied me, or my dad who discounted me, or friends who stopped talking to me as I'm training to be a wrestler. And I wanted to be able to sort of rub it in their face and go, haha, I did it. But as things are happening, I feel like I still suffer from it. Like there's this level of like imposter syndrome, and maybe it's based on trauma or insecurities, but it's like, I don't know what it is about continuing to pursue something that I love, that I can't stop. But I always had these doubts. And when stuff starts happening, even like little stuff that at the time were like big milestones that I appreciate, but in retrospect, it's like, geez, like, I mean, if that happened now, I'd be like, whatever, like, for example, I guess like the first dream come true was being paid to be a wrestler.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a big one.
yeah, so like I didn't get paid for like the first 9 months that I wrestled. For some reason, JT said after your seventh match, you'll get paid. Why he picked seven, I don't know. And he never discussed how much money that would be, whatever. And I felt like if I asked him how much you're paying me, he would have slapped me or something, because he was from that, old school,
Yeah.
just like wrestling. I came in at the tail end of like, abuse in wrestling and fucking shitty people training people. And so 7 matches came and went, and I never got paid. And eventually I took a drive to Pittsburgh, and me and Matt Justice. And to this day, I only think I got paid because I mentioned to the referee, who was friends with the promoter, a big day in my life will be when I finally get paid to be a wrestler, because then I can say I'm a pro wrestler because I got paid money.
To be a pro. You got to get paid.
Yeah. And so
I'm a pro podcaster. I made $2 from Facebook. Yeah, they gave me $2, so now I'm a pro podcaster.
There you go. See, you're in business. So at the end of the show, the promoter walked up to me, gave me the brother handshake, but he did it, all secretly. And then, I could feel a piece of paper in my hand, and I go to the corner to look what he gave me, and I open it and it's green. And then I unroll it and it's a $5 bill. And I remember being like, fuck yeah. All right. I got paid to be a wrestler. But if someone tried to give me $5 now, I would murder them. I'd be like, is this a fucking joke? Right. But I guess the point of the rambling is, though, it's like every time something cool happens, or that it's all a matter of I don't think I ever really thought these things would happen, but my defiance and my will, my desire to keep marching forward towards this thing that I love, I think I've had to convince myself along the way that because of the things that I've been through and the hard work that I put in, I have to remind myself that I deserve these things. And I think it doesn't just apply to me in this situation. I think we as people, with everything that we do, if you work hard at something, you love something, you start getting stuff that maybe you didn't really think that you could get or attain, or sometimes we question whether we deserve it. You need to step outside yourself for a moment and think about what would one of your friends or a loved one say to you in this moment. How do they look at you? Sometimes you have to look at yourself the way other people see you, and sort of look at it from that third eye, right? Break the fourth wall and be that hidden camera that doesn't exist. You're on a reality show, and what does that look like to other people? And just realize that, if you're putting in the work, you deserve it. And you should celebrate those victories.
Absolutely. So you also do a podcast every week that is one of my favorite podcasts, the Iron On Wrestling Podcast with Aaron Bauer, and it's a fantastic show. If anybody listening hasn't subscribed to that, please do so. It is definitely awesome. I like when you talk about wrestling, but I really like when you just talk. You and Aaron, you guys are just great together, and it's just really, really cool. And
thank you.
Talk about personal experiences and things like that. But I reached out to you because I also listen to Jim Cornette's podcast. And I was wondering, do you think he listens to your podcast? Because he has definitely stolen bits from you. I don't know if it's just coincidence. The Hulk Hogan lie thing he came up with, he started doing that. And he's always shitting on Cleveland. And he hates Johnny Gargano for some reason. I think that's a rib on you because he listens to your podcast.
It might be that, so I've listened to Jim for a long time too. And, I don't like that he hates Johnny. I don't understand that. I'm biased, but also it just sucks the way Jim says stuff sometimes, because the majority of things that he says, I agree with. And I think, you know what I mean?
It's the same things.
Yeah. It's just he says them in shitty ways just to get rises out of people. And he's not dumb. You know what I mean? It's I think 50% of it is him turning the volume up and being a character, right? Because he knows that's what's going to drive people to listen to the show. Nobody wants to hear, everybody say good things about each other, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way the world works, right? And I don't know. I don't know if he stole anything from me, but it was very coincidental.
Coincidence. There's at least I messaged you one time. There's 5 bits, and then he started doing the Hogan lying thing, and I'm like, you can't tell me he doesn't listen to you now.
Yeah, he was doing the Hogan lies. He was stealing my cameos that I was doing for a while.
Bad cameos.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell, man? Well, I mean, I think the Hogan thing was inevitable because everybody has caught on up to the Hulk Hogan lie, and it's his own fault. And again, I think this is what adds to not necessarily Hogan being a bad person, but like why he's getting booed, because you can only lie so much and you can only say asinine stuff so many times before people just like they don't care anymore. You just look like
Right.
a dumbass, you know? And it's again, it's embarrassing. Like listen, I love the character, okay?
Yeah.
And like in my gym is an autographed 24 by 36 workout photo that I'm very proud to have in my gym. And it's one of those little dream come trues where I didn't hang it up on a wall because he was holding weights, because I told myself when I got it signed, I'm not going to hang this up until I have a home gym. So it just sat in storage and now it's up on my wall. So I'm very proud of that. But like, I'm embarrassed to say that he's my childhood hero, you know, and that sucks. That really sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I even got him in my little logo up there. There's Hogan and Warrior.
There he is. Yeah.
Do it. You know, he's a Babe Ruth of wrestling, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The same thing with Vince, man. Like all this craziness with him. Like I was just watching that WrestleMania 9 documentary, and I was texting my son. I was like, you know, it's a shame that, you know, we can't, and I understand why, but we can't hear Vince's side in these things anymore, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it just sucks that like people with power, like in Vince's case, you know, he's basically flaunting his fantasies that he's actually acting out secretly on camera.
Secretly, though.
Right. Like it's crazy.
It's wild, dude. It's totally wild.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So what is the coolest venue you've ever performed at as a wrestler? Because you've wrestled, like, how many states have you wrestled in? Do you know?
I don't know how many states. I mean, I would probably
Quite a few, I know.
20 states maybe. I mean, that might be a couple more than I've actually wrestled in, but like, you know, various provinces in Canada as well.
Mhm.
I've went as far up as Iqaluit, which is as close as you can get to the North Pole, and wrestled
Oh, wow.
for Inuit people. Um, I mean, the coolest venue for me, I always like going to the Pavilion every year downtown because
Yeah.
it's home, and I had a lot of my best and worst life moments there. Going back to my first experience in that venue was when I was in third grade, because I wrote an essay. Couldn't be more than 100 words. And because I've always been a rambler and I like
Mhm.
to write, I remember my teacher working with me to get it down to 100 words exactly. I wrote an essay, what I would do if I was mayor of Cleveland for a day.
Mhm.
And I was one of 5 kids picked from the Cleveland Public Schools from my grade. So first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade. I was in third grade. I got picked. I got to meet the mayor of Cleveland, Mayor White at the time,
Mhm.
and it was at an event called Kids Fest, which happened in the Pavilion uh, downtown, and that was a good life experience. And then, of course, you know, I went back there to wrestle for the first time in 2007. I almost died from a concussion with brain bleeding there. And so then to kind of contrast that, to come back the next year, I had a last man standing match with Johnny in that venue, which I think for the time being 20 years old, we had a pretty good match. There are definitely a lot of things I would change from that, but um, that was it was more emotional for me than I thought, because I guess I never really had a near death experience, right? Like I mean, I
Right.
literally almost died from the concussion the year before. And to come back to that venue, wrestle my friend, I remember walking to the ring and my arms went numb. Like just I had no feeling in them. And I got in the ring and I remember saying to Johnny, I can't feel my arms right now. But it's one of those things where you can't look at the ref and go, "Hey, time out. I think there might be
Right.
something wrong." Um, we just went out there and did the match, and eventually my arms came back. And then afterwards, I mean, I just broke down crying, and I think it was the trauma of I was back in this place, you know, where this terrible thing had happened, and now I had this beautiful moment with. You know, at that point, Johnny had already become my best friend. Like I was living with him, and we were spending every day together, like lifting weights and everything. And I remember just getting the back covered in blood because it was last man standing and I was bleeding, and I started crying and I gave him a hug. And I was like, I just want to thank you for everything you and your family do for me. And because I don't know why, like I never feel like I can truly pay back the people that I care about most in my life. I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe because I was a kid without money, but I always feel like I should be able to like cut someone a check for something. And so all I have is my words.
Right.
And so I knew after the match we just had and the way I was feeling, I knew like I had to tell him right there in that moment. So he knew anytime that he thinks Greg is being a dick, I would hope that he looks back at that moment and goes, oh, like he really genuinely cares about me. Cause I mean, he was just hugging me back and said, don't cry, man. And so like, I don't know, like obviously I did that there. I wrestled Gowan there. And then like, another venue I'm proud of is like, I wrestled in the Pepsi Center in Denver, which is where Zach wrestled Vince McMahon, Vengeance 2003. And when I watched that, that's where I came up with the idea of wearing the handicap symbol on my gear, because someone had a handicap symbol in the crowd. And I remember thinking Zach Gowan should wear a handicap symbol on his gear so people really know that he's handicapped, and he can sort of like take that back, right? Because like the handicap symbol, I think, is looked at as like weakness, right?
Yeah.
Like you get parking closest to the door, but in general, I don't think anybody is really thrilled to put up their handicap plaque or anything, or park in the handicap spot, because like I think it comes with a level of embarrassment, right? For the most part, if you have a handicap placard, you have something that's slowing you down, and there's a reason why you have to park so close to the door. And so, it was seeing him in the Pepsi Center that I got that idea. And then, to fast forward, and this kind of puts things in perspective for me as time goes on and I'm growing up and I'm having these experiences, because I always thought that in my profession, success is WWE. That was my goal when I started. That's the ultimate goal that I want to attain, to be able to tell people, haha, you suck, I rule, I did it, you didn't. And that doesn't happen for me. And so in various points in my life and career, I think that I'm a failure and I'm not living up to my own expectations. But success is measured.
Was to win the Super Bowl. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but like
tens of thousands of NFL players that don't get to do that. Just
absolutely right. But there's also tens of thousands of football players that never even get to make it to the NFL. So it's like, so the bottom line is like, you are the judge of your own success, right? What do you look at as successful? And I think one of the most emotional moments of my life and one of the most successful moments of my life was wrestling in that Pepsi Center in front of like 3,000 people. I got to do something with a Make-A-Wish kid in the middle of the ring before the match. And then I got to go stand on the top rope, look out into that crowd. And I didn't even have to wrestle the match at that point. Just knowing that, like, at 16, I saw Zach, thought maybe I could be a wrestler if I tried. And if I did, I'd wear a handicap symbol on my gear. And I'm standing on the top rope looking out into the crowd and I have a handicap symbol on my gear. That to me is success. And you can't put a price on that.
Yeah. And in a building he worked for the WWE.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Right on. So who would be your favorite person to work with, like in wrestling?
Oh boy. I mean, it's always easy to have chemistry with your friends. So like, I would always never say no to a Johnny match or M-Dog, Josh Prohibition, because he played a role in helping train me, Gowan. I've had some great matches with and against my brother. But sometimes, you have chemistry with people that maybe you don't even necessarily like, and it just clicks for whatever reason. My co-host
that was supposed to be here, I guess he told me he used to do backyard wrestling with your brother.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
I got Greg Iron's going to come on for an interview, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I used to backyard wrestle with his brother." And I was like,
That's so funny. So many kids backyard wrestled in that Fed. Like my brother, your co-host,
yeah.
Alex Daniels, Josh Singh when they were wrestlers, a bunch of kids. Ashton Day who wrestles around here. But what was the question? I spaced out.
Oh, favorite guy to work with.
Favorite guy to work with. Chemistry with people that you might not like. I mean, like, I've always had great matches with all the guys in 440, even before we were a group. Like back in the day, like Eric Ryan, when we used to wrestle. Bobby Beverly, I feel like, is one of the first guys that I really clicked with on a level that was like the chemistry with me and Johnny. I had a couple matches with Brody Lee, who I wouldn't say he was a close friend, but we shared a lot of locker rooms together, and I was really proud of the couple matches I had with him. And I mean, I'm proud of some of the stories within the matches that I was able to tell with some people that might not had as many physical limitations as me, but like I figured out early on that wrestling isn't the moves, right? Like there were a bunch of guys that I wish I could wrestle like when I started wrestling, I thought I would want to wrestle like a Kurt Angle or a Chris Benoit, but I quickly realized that looks weird if the guy with cerebral palsy is trying to be like this suplexing submission wrestler, right? Yeah. And so you work to your strengths. And so I think I'm proud of the matches that I was able to pull out of people that maybe didn't know their own strengths and weaknesses. And I'm proud of those matches with people that not only that I learned stuff from, but and something that I never thought I'd be in a position to do. I'm proud of the matches where the light bulb could go on for the person that I was working with and they took something away from me. And I think that's the beauty of wrestling, is like telling those stories and creating art, because there's nothing worse than when you're trying to paint these beautiful colors on a canvas and you're working with someone that is just painting brown unintentionally or otherwise. It's just like, come on, man. Like it's about telling a story and getting people emotionally invested. That's why we keep coming back. Like I don't think I'd be a wrestling fan if it was just for the moves. Like, I mean, again, WrestleMania 6 is what drew me in, and there's not necessarily like an iconic, like super good wrestling match on that show. Right. Like, so.
Yeah. But Hogan and Warrior brought you in and told this giant, larger than life story. And I mean, neither one of those guys could do the moves, like
no, it was like
the guys you paid to see.
Yeah. And this is when I'm like still understanding that like, wrestling is just like real life superheroes, like actual superheroes you can meet. And so it was like, Batman fighting Superman, right? Like that's like the movie equivalent to that. And so it's like, whose side are you going to pick? And then you have all these other heroes and villains that you can emotionally invest in, and these stories that captivate you. And like, that's why we keep coming back. And that's why I keep wrestling, because like the ability to, for lack of a better term, manipulate people's emotions and like allow them to feel, and to be able to, the thing that I've been saying recently as I question, what's next in my journey, it's like, being able to endure this physical pain that wrestling, brings to you. So that way, for a moment, whatever pain you're going through in your life, you don't have to think about that. Like, that's why I'm a wrestler. Like as messed up as that is, like I take the pain so you don't have to, so you can be lost in the moment.
Absolutely. Right on. So let's see. You got to just about everything, I think. Let's see. I have the worst handwriting in the world. Like, check this out. It's awful.
Oh my God.
I can't read it myself half the time,
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So we normally we're a horror podcast. Are you into horror movies?
I am. Actually, I'll show you here in my living room here, one of my prized possessions since having a house. Which one am I turning the camera? Hold on. Turn. You see that right there?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a vintage autographed Nightmare on Elm Street 5 movie standee. And I actually, so as a kid, I was terrified of Freddy Krueger, right?
Me too.
Like I had reoccurring nightmares
Same,
that
to
I
this
can remember
day.
to this day.
To this
But
day, I have the nightmares.
well, there you go.
Sure.
And so like, so what happened was sometime around like 13 or 14,
Mhm.
this would have been like 97, 98. I don't know. There was like some kid who was letting me borrow movies or something from school because I didn't have cable.
Yeah.
And he was
Same.
like, "Oh, I have this Freddy Krueger one, like Nightmare on Elm Street 3. You want to borrow it?" And I remember thinking, like, whew, I'm really scared of this guy still, but like maybe I want to conquer that fear. And I watched it. And I remember, like, I guess I didn't realize like how funny Freddy
Well,
was.
that's probably because you probably got in part 1 and part 2. Part 1 and 2,
Yes.
he wasn't telling jokes.
Right, right. And so once I realized like
Different guy
what
in 3, 4, 5.
yeah, totally different. And so like once I realized that there's like a comedic element
Yeah.
to it almost, I was like, let me go back and explore these movies because I'm like, I'm not gonna have nightmares anymore. I know he's not a real guy. And Freddy became like my favorite horror dude. And again, it's just one of those things where like, I don't know, maybe I'm all about the story. I don't know, but it's like, oh, like I think I overcame this fear of Freddy Krueger. So now like I'm just gonna fall in love with him. And so I did a
He's a Cleveland
autograph
guy.
signing at a Rhode Island Comic Con, and that standee was there, and this dude was trying to sell it for like $300, and I was there for 2 days signing autographs,
Mhm.
and I was like, no one's going to give you $300, man. Let me buy it off you. Let me buy it off you. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. And then Comic Con was about to close down, and I was like, hey man, come on, sell it to me. And he was like, what's the best you could do? I'm like, well, I got to ship this back home to myself, so I can give you $60, and he did it. And so, and I
Deal for that.
that's a steal, right? And it wasn't signed. So
Yeah.
I went to a show in Columbus and got it signed by Lisa Wilcox. I watched Nightmare 4 with her in the theater, and then I got her to sign it. And then I had a buddy of mine get it signed by Robert England because he runs
No
horror
shit.
shows. But yeah, it's one of my prized possessions, and I'm sure I increased the value tenfold.
Oh God, yeah, with Robert on it for sure.
Yeah.
And Lisa, the final girl and the killer. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
met Lisa. She actually agreed to do my show, but we haven't been able to do it yet. She was one of the first people I met at a horror convention. She's
That's
real
awesome.
sweetheart. She's
She's
super nice.
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. My kid, he has a question. He says, "What's the craziest bump you ever taken?"
Oh boy. Well, I guess that could be maybe a two-part question. I guess the craziest bump would probably be the multiple bumps that I almost died from in
Those
2007.
weren't supposed to be crazy bumps, though, right? Like
No.
Mick Foley goes off the cage, and something could go wrong. You know you're getting into that. Mick Foley takes a spine buster in the middle of the ring. He's not
Yeah.
supposed to get a brain bleed.
Yeah. It's always the stuff that isn't cool that what you get hurt on, right? Or it's not what you expected. So like when I took those bumps in 2007, it was in a pre-show battle royal, which once you have a certain amount of guys in the ring, you shouldn't even be bumping in a battle royal because it's not safe. Even I knew that, at the time. And long story short, with that, it was like at some point, Michael Tarver, who wasn't Michael Tarver yet, suplexed me on my head. German suplex, didn't call it, just came up behind me and grabbed me. Now,
Grabbed you, threw you because you were a little dude. He knew he could.
So I don't remember, obviously, because I was unconscious the whole time. But he claims that he came up to me and told me. But if he did, he must have just grabbed me and said German suplex, which at that point I had been wrestling just over a year. I'd never even taken a German suplex. And this guy didn't know his own strength. He just picks me up, tosses me. And then Ray Rowe, who's now in WWE as Eric, who we're on good terms, since then. He gave me a couple suplexes. Like one was like a dragon suplex, which is like a full Nelson suplex.
Yeah.
And then another guy gave me a power, like a fall away slam. And then at some point, someone tossed me through the second and third rope. And even though I was out on my feet, I was coherent enough to know that I wasn't eliminated. So I got back in the ring and then I attacked Ray Rowe, and I did it in like a comical fashion, like shitty punches to the back, and he turned around and gave me like the grossest power bomb of all time, where he just drove me down as hard as you physically could. And I mean, the fact that last move didn't kill me really is a miracle, because I've only seen I've seen the hard cam multiple times, but I haven't seen it in, 18 years at this point, because I would watch it every day obsessively to where Johnny's stepdad had to throw it in the garbage. So I stopped watching it. Like, it was because how many people have their near-death experience on tape, right? So I just kept watching it and analyzing it. And I just remember when my head hits the canvas, like, which it hits the canvas, my hands just curl, and I try to raise my head up, and I just can't. It's like I'm paralyzed.
Yeah.
And then Ray just kind of, scoops me off the mat and just dead weights me over the top rope. And if Ben Boone wasn't with me, didn't stay with me, didn't have someone convince him to finally take me to the hospital, because this is around the time where we still don't know about concussions really. And so
Right.
other wrestlers, Ben keeps saying that he thinks I might be messed up, and wrestlers are just saying, don't be a pussy, don't be a bitch, walk it off. And had Ben listened to them and just said, okay, walk it off, I would be dead. Well,
Yeah.
like, legitimately would have just went to sleep and died. But the craziest bumps that I've ever taken that were intentional but still dumb, probably anything that involved me going through glass, which somehow as I've gotten older, I've gotten dumber. Like, I remember, so when I had my feud with Veda Scott back in AIW, one of the things that was pitched by Veda was going through glass. And I was like, no, I'm never going to go through glass. And this was in 2013, 2014. Fast forward, I'm doing GCW, and I took like a Spanish fly from Alex Colon off the top rope through a pane of glass. And I took multiple panes of glass from Nick Gage, and probably the most recent one was the absolute dumbest. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea, but the videos on my Instagram, we had the 6-man tag death match in Chicago for Ruthless Pro Wrestling, 440 versus 440. And the finish that was proposed, I don't even know if I told this story. The proposed finish was, what if my partners, my brother Zach and Otis Koger, pick up Christian Napier for a last ride, and I jump up and give him a neck breaker, boom, through the glass. That was the proposed idea for a finish. I was concerned about the timing, and it was glass. It was going to get a pop regardless, and we were the first match on the show, so like, people would be into everything because they hadn't seen anything yet.
Right.
But like, my concern was my timing on the neck breaker wouldn't be good. So I go, what if instead, wouldn't it be a cool visual if like I give him a cross body over top of him, and like you guys are driving him down and I'm physically landing on him, not thinking that like, my face could go through this glass with him. And I didn't even think about it in that moment, because how do you don't think about that. You just do it. And so I go up there, and my concern in doing the jump is, when I do the cross body, I want them to be close, because I want to make sure that, sometimes if you land too high on a guy, you can knock him out. And as a guy who's been knocked out, I don't want to knock someone else out.
Right.
So my concern was, if he stays close, I can just kind of jump and kind of push him down and not overshoot him, not land on his head, and just kind of come down on his chest. In doing so, because my jump was so small, if you go back and watch the video, which it's in slow motion, so it's easy to see on the Instagram, my foot clips the back of Otis. So as I'm jumping, making sure to protect Christian, when my foot clips his back, instead of me just being in a crossbody sideways, all of a sudden my foot clips, and now all of a sudden I'm taking a nosedive. So when I go through the glass, it's just me and Christian, his back and my face going through the glass. And I was already bleeding a lot. And when I went through the glass, a piece of glass shot up into my forehead, and thank God it was up in my hairline, but it's a pretty deep gash. And I could just feel the warmth of the blood. I knew there was more, like I knew my face was cut, because I could just feel fresh blood pouring out of me, because I'm a good bleeder, but it coagulates pretty quickly to where like I can just peel it off my face. Like once the match is over, it's just like gone off my face.
Proverbial red mask.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But once I landed, I knew that there was more blood coming out because I get the warmth was just covering my body like a blanket, and made for a great visual, but it's not necessarily something that I want to do again. That's probably the craziest bump that I ever took.
Nice. So do you like working heel or face more? And which one do you think you're better at?
I mean, I feel like the answer for most people is going to be heel, and I'm no different
I like you
because
better as a heel.
yeah, I like
I've seen you
wrestling
for
better.
years and years as a face, and when I finally seen you doing heel stuff, I'm like, this is gold.
I think bad guy stuff comes more natural to me because I'm a natural smartass, and I want to be able to make one part of the audience laugh, and I want to make another part of the audience offended or appalled. And so, like, I get to do the best of both worlds with that. I like wrestling, physically wrestling better as a good guy, but I like the entertaining aspect that I get to do as a bad guy. Like, because with me, again, I've got to wrestle differently as a bad guy. I can't just go in there and put heat on guys. The psychology has to be, I'm still usually smaller and I have one arm. So I can't just beat this guy up the whole time unless I have assistance from guys on the outside or something. Right. And so my shtick is a lot of gaga, a lot of me, being very Icarus, flying too close to the sun, getting too big for my britches, and then looking like a fool. Like, that's usually the story.
And it works. It definitely works. See, with everybody knows that one little kid that was a smartass that you wanted to destroy, but you couldn't because he was way smaller. And if you smacked him around, you're gonna, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what you were as a heel. Like, you kind of wanted to, and then seeing somebody else do it's better than you doing it because
and my thing too, like what initially, when the idea for me to be a bad guy regularly was pitched as a thing, people didn't think I could do it. And again, it's a blessing and a curse. I got that Stone Cold Steve Austin mentality, and that's exactly where it came from. It's like, the character, whether it was part character and part real life guy, it was always like, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong each and every time. And I already had this idea in my back pocket when I started being a bad guy at AIW, was like, to get heat, it would be good if I had a lawyer, which it turned out that in real life, Veda was a paralegal. And so we used that. We just made her a lawyer so she could say like lawyer jargon and all that stuff. And then, so the idea was originally pitched to me by Sami Callihan for LuchaCore was the name of his promotion. Okay. He had this idea of me as a bad guy, but I could beat people by pinning them for a count of 2. Okay. And I remember hearing that and thinking about it. And then I said, yeah, but like, that means everybody has to kick out of all my moves at 1, which makes every single thing I do look weak. Right. Mm-hmm. So I said, what if I was a bad guy and they had to pin me for a count of 4? Because the idea would be 1 second changes everything. And then the psychology was, you would have someone remind the crowd that I have to get pinned for a count of 4. And so since I'm a bad guy, the idea is one spot in the match happens where I try to pull some bullshit. I can get hit with the finishing move. It doesn't matter because finishing move happens. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Crowd pops out of instinct. I kick out before 4. Crowd has to think for a second. There's kind of a buzz. Wait, did something go wrong? Oh shit, I forgot about this 4 count. I hate Gregory Iron. He's a piece of shit. And then they would start chanting, fuck the 4 count. And so then something would happen where I would do something dirty, underhanded, and then I would win. So, because again, the idea is like, I have a 1 second advantage, and like in life, 1 second can change everything.
Absolutely.
It can change everything. And so that was the mindset with the 4 count. And the fact that no one has let me do the 4 count since AIW is a crime. I need to bring that back because I still think there's money in that.
Definitely is. So you were on Stone Cold's podcast. He was on your podcast. How did that come to be? How did that come to be, and what was your thought when it did? Like, I mean, because you being a everybody's a giant Austin fan. He's one of the most popular wrestlers of all time. You know, so I know you're a giant Austin fan. So, like, how did that work out, and any backstory to that you could tell us?
Yeah. So basically, I'm good friends with Pepper Parks and Andy Williams, the Butcher and the Blade, Cherry Bomb, Laura,
Yeah.
and
I've been trying to get her on this pod. Well, the other podcast, the horror.
Yeah,
podcast.
she does her horror podcast and everything. She's great.
I heard about her on your podcast, and I was like, "Oh no, shit!" I downloaded it that day. It's great stuff.
Yeah, and so I was hanging out with them, and they had just done together Stone Cold's podcast. So this is like 2018, and me and Andy were talking, and he was like, "Man, you have a great story." And the producers from Buffalo, if you were ever in LA, I could probably get you booked on his podcast. And then coincidentally, I just broke up with my girlfriend at the time. So I was going through the feels. You know, we had been together for like 5 years. Mm-hmm. And Candice LeRae reached out to a friend and got me booked in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So I was already headed to Los Angeles in the next couple months. So I told Andy, I am going to California, actually. So he said, let me try to set this up. And it's one of those, you know, you'll believe it if it happens. And
right, exactly.
Eventually the producer reaches out to me and we start communicating, and he looked up to my stuff and he liked it. And then eventually he texts me one day. He goes, here's Steve's number. Give him a call.
You're like, yeah, right.
yeah. He's like, give him a call or shoot him a text. He literally said, don't be weird. He's just a normal guy, but don't say anything stupid. Just don't make me look bad. Like, just be normal. And I was like, okay. And shot him a text, and pretty quickly he wrote me back and was like, hey, I'll call you the next day or so just to kind of go over like what we'll talk about. So I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. And then I remember it was the day before I was supposed to do his podcast. And so me and Zach Gowen were in LA together, and then he was going home. And I had told him, hey, I set my ringtone for Stone Cold to be Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme song. So if you hear the glass, that's Stone Cold Steve Austin calling my phone. And I remember we were getting out to go to the gym before a show, and all of a sudden the glass shatters, and I like looked at Zach, and I was like, oh fuck, I got to pick up this phone right now. And it was like a 1 minute conversation, but like, you know, Austin was basically like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I'm just trying to do this motivational speaking thing. So like, that's really what I'm trying to like get out there. And he's like, all right, sounds good. See you tomorrow. And then, you know, I was nervous, and I remember Candice texted me on the way to his house in the Uber. And again, sometimes things just happen when you need it, right? It's not like when you expect it, it's when you need it. And Candice was like, hey, really take time to appreciate today, because not everybody just gets to go to Stone Cold's house and do his podcast.
Exactly.
And I was like
a wrestler, it's the wrestler.
Yeah. And I read that text and I was like, yeah, okay. And then I remember I pulled up and he was wearing mismatched camo and New Balance. And I just started laughing because I'm like, why is he dressed like this? Like, what he's like a fucking dad. And he was just a guy. He was just a normal guy. And like, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, you know, I've been on shows with like Bushwhacker Luke, and I'm like nervous to talk to him and I don't want to bother him. But for whatever reason.
Is that the Bushwhacker with the relationship with Aaron?
Yes. Maybe I have my reasons for being nervous, but for whatever reason, like me and Austin could just joke right away and like make fun of each other. And, you know, I mean, after I did his podcast, it was so good. He asked me to do it again that day. And like, we recorded 2 episodes, and then I sat with him for like 4-5 hours, and we just talked, and I met his wife, and I played with his dog. And, I mean, he texted me after and said if I ever need anything to give him a call. And so I took that to heart, and I was like, I'm going to call this guy as much as he'll allow me to. And like, to this day, you know, 7 years later, I still keep in touch with him, text, call. And, it's weird. Like, would it be nice if he, if he were able to give me a job? Sure. But like, anytime I need something, anytime I need to bend someone's ear, or there have been times where he randomly calls me to fuck with me and bend my ear, you know, I I'm a pretty lucky guy to be in a situation like that. And it'll never stop being surreal.
Oh, for sure, for sure. That's definitely pretty awesome, man. I was shocked because I listened to his podcast as well, and it's like Greg Iron. I'm like, no shit, it's
Yeah.
fucking awesome. I know that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking really cool, man. It was, and you did really good on it too. I mean, I'm not sure you knew that already, but it was definitely one of his better podcasts. You know, because
I appreciate that.
You know, you're a guy that, you know, it's not like everybody else, and that's what you want to talk up to. You know, like you have like your story's insane, man. You know, we didn't. I'm not gonna, you know, really get into it too much because we're already an hour and 15 into this, man. But you know, your childhood growing up was wild, and then you know, cerebral palsy, and then breaking into the wrestling business with that, and just your ability to overachieve and achieve all your goals is very inspiring. I guess that's why you're doing the motivational speaker gimmick now, which is great too, you know, because you are motivational. I mean, you are an inspiration to anybody that knows you and anybody that knows anything about you.
Well, you know, I appreciate that. And you know what? It's like, you know, at some point you have to realize it's okay to let the anger drive you, right? Because sometimes the anger and the frustration will, if you use that as fuel, it can lead you to great things. But you can't let that anger consume you, right? And sometimes you have to be able to look at the situation, take accountability for your own shortcomings and misdeeds, adjust, because you can't keep doing the same shit if it's not working. And you have to realize that, particularly in my situation, you know, you make the best of the situation, and then you have to stop making it about yourself. Like, you got to realize that something like this is a gift to inspire people the way that I was inspired by some larger life characters, even though I don't see myself as such. Some people will look to me, and, you know, I've had so many people tell me that they've done various things because of my story, or they've attempted to become wrestlers or became wrestlers. And it's humbling to be that person that, you know, I still think that I'm striving to be. But again, you have to stop and try to see yourself the way other people see you. And, you know, I'm very thankful for everything that I've done over the past 18 years. And, you know, if I don't go any farther physically as a wrestler, I still think that I have a lot to contribute as someone in wrestling. And
I mean, you definitely have a great mind for the business. I can tell that just from talking to you. Like, you understand how this works, and you'd be somebody could definitely use you in some way, either as a writer or you know, even like what are they, the producers, the guys that, you know, the match, they call a producer. Yeah, you definitely know your shit.
Well, and that comes down to just surrounding myself with good people, a positive social circle. And like, I mean, I guess good advice for anybody trying to attempt wrestling or any creative endeavor. It's like, sometimes, you know, especially in something as weird as wrestling, independent wrestling, you're going to hear a lot of voices from a lot of different places telling you what to do and what not to do. And it's hard to filter out the right and the wrong sometimes because you're still learning. But the best advice I can give someone is like, look to people that are in situations that you want to be in. So like, you know, some local yokel who proclaims that they've wrestled for 25 years, but hasn't left the 20-mile radius of Cleveland, maybe don't listen to his advice. That's why, like, early on, I would, you know, I strive to, you know, even Gargano, because like even though we're the same age, you know, he was going out and trying stuff that I was scared to do. Or Cole Cabana, you know, asking him for advice after matches, and like, he, you know, took a liking to me. And, you know, now fast forward when I could just call up Stone Cold if I just if I want to talk psychology or like business advice or something, you know, it's just like, look to people that you want to be in their position.
Absolutely. All right, man. So we're going to get ready to wrap this up, man. I want to thank you for coming on and talking to us. It's been awesome having you. Is there, like, can you maybe plug like where our listeners, if hopefully we have some, can actually like follow you and what you do, and maybe they could reach out to you and see you on your podcast that you do, and maybe get you to take videos in crazy socks.
Yeah.
Get in there, so I had to shoehorn that in there.
Hey, everybody's got a price, right? So you can find me on social media at Gregory_Iron on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not doing much on there. Just find me at Gregory Iron. Facebook.com/The Handicapped Hero. Best way to support me is through the Patreon, patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling, where I provide even more content than I do on the podcast. But if you just want to listen for free, new podcast drops every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. iTunes, Spotify, wherever you download your favorite podcasts. I'm on YouTube as well, always putting unique and original content over there, more video content than I've ever done before. And, you can contact me on any of those social media platforms for motivational speaking, pro wrestling seminars when I'm healed from my injury. And, just keep watching, because during this downtime, I'm making the most of it. I'm in the process of finally writing this book that I've been scared to do for a long time, but I've got nothing but time for the next 6 months at least. So, I've already got 5 chapters done. For the first time, I'm very confident in what I've written. I think it's something, I'm not saying how great it is, but I think what I'm writing is bigger than a wrestling story. It's not a story that's just centered around wrestling. Wrestling is a backbone to a more important story about a kid who is afraid of the world and doesn't understand the crazy situation that he's in. A grown man who's clinging on to his childhood based on his terrible childhood and having to grow up too quickly. And not only figuring myself out through the course of of being mildly successful in my passion, but continuing to figure myself out and helping people along the way as I do that.
Awesome, man. But yeah, once again, we're gonna get out of here. But thanks again for coming on, man. I'm gonna message you in a minute after we get off of here. And yeah, man, it was great talking to you tonight, brother.
It's great talking with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, take it easy, brother.
You too.